One of the most captivating fantasies of the modern age is stepping into the shoes of a detective.
Like two baby crocodiles.
There's something about the dramatized unraveling of gruesome murders that grips us, lighting up our imaginations and stirring our primal instincts. Maybe it's the charm of our favorite TV sleuths.
You get any sleep last night?
I don't sleep. I just dream.
Or perhaps more likely it's the vicarious thrill of solving a tangled mystery from the safety of our armchairs, a mental gymnastics that feels deeply satisfying when it all clicks into place.
Rhythmic pattern calms your mind. Mammals like this stuff.
Crime and the shadowy corners of society where it festers has an allure to it that's hard to ignore. It beckons us with the promise of adventure and the chance to tiptoe into dangerous forbidden territory. That might explain why Disco Elysium was so often pitched as a detective RPG. The word detective does hold a certain magnetism. The same principle applies to HBO's True Detective. It's a straightforward name that carries a promise. Not to just be any old detective, but one of purity. There's a certain righteousness about prefixing it with true that reinforces that allure. Detective stories, of course, make us feel like we're right there, shoulder to shoulder with the lead investigator. We collect evidence as they do, connect the dots with them, or if we're particularly clever, we'll be one step ahead. That moment when the case comes together, when the cuffs snap shut, it's a rush of shared triumph. But what if this is all a trick? What if a sign on the door reads "Detectives Wanted" and leads not to a crime scene, but to a hall of mirrors? What if the real mystery isn't about who done it, but about you? Harry DuBois and Russ Cohle are masters at solving crimes. Give them enough time and space and they'll untangle any web of lies and track down any perpetrator. But can they escape the spectres that haunt their own lives? Can they solve the mysteries within themselves? How long can a man keep running from his sorrow before he's forced to turn and face it? True Detective and Disco Elysium are far less interested in slapping the cuffs on in unison with their audiences, and instead demand that together we don't crack the case, but piece together the shattered mirror of self-reflection. Solving a mystery as big as that is what makes Harry, Rust, and by extension you and I, true detectives.
There's a mercenary out back. He's been hanged. The body has been there for a week now. The locals probably got tired of it and called the cops.
It's poetic in a grim sort of way that both Disco Elysium and True Detective begin with a body beneath a tree. At first glance, these setups seem like the opening beats of a classic murder mystery, dark, grisly, drenched in intrigue. They draw you in with that comforting familiarity of detective fiction's well-worn tropes. But something about these scenes doesn't quite sit right from the outset. The body of the mercenary hanging behind the hostel in Disco Elysium feels almost too deliberate. Similarly, Dora Lang's body in True Detective seems to merge brutality with ritual. The placement of these bodies suggests a purpose beyond mere violence. There are many parallels between True Detective and Disco Elysium, most of which can be found in their shared focus on the two broken protagonists, Rust Cohle and Harry DuBois. Rust and Harry stand at the heart of their respective narratives, both haunted by the chains of their pasts, unable to escape the scars left by heartbreak and regret. These are men who, despite their efforts to move forward, remain irrevocably tied to the moments that define them. In Disco Elysium, Harry DuBois is introduced not as a fully realised character, but as a newborn baby in an adult's body. But he's not quite a blank slate. Instead, he's more of a sketch of a person, his outline already drawn, waiting for the player to add colour and depth. No matter what choices you make in the game, however, certain truths about Harry remain immutable. He's a cop in the Revachol Citizens Militia, he's a seasoned detective with a history of solving crimes, and, most painfully, he's the ex-boyfriend of Dora England. Dora's presence looms large over Harry's story, even though it's sparingly addressed. Their relationship, once passionate and full of love, has clearly devolved into toxicity, leaving Harry a broken shell of a man. The game gives glimpses into their love, most notably through the letter Harry keeps in his ledger, but it's clear that this love turned destructive. What's especially poignant is how Disco Elysium handles Harry's view of this relationship. The narrative doesn't necessarily paint Harry as a victim or a villain, it gives us his own damning self-assessment. Remember, the game is told through Harry's mind, and it's clear that he blames himself for what happened. His violence, his drinking, the overwhelming toll of his job, they all seemed to him like undeniable truth that he was the root of this toxicity.
Tomorrow night. Once this dream starts happening, it keeps happening. 3 times a week, at least. And Harry, it really, really looks like it started happening again. There's the video rental. I'm suffocatingly beautiful and young, and I smell of tutti frutti chewing gum, like I did that time when I asked you for forgiveness, after leaving you the first time, so long ago. Oh yes, this is real darkness. It's not death or war or child molestation. Real darkness has love for a face. The first death is in the heart, Harry.
The breakup doesn't just leave Harry heartbroken, it sends him spiraling into depression and alcoholism. The alcoholism also has an interesting twist. During the final debrief, it's mentioned that Harry has done this before. The blacking out is not his first rodeo.
But Detective Wigmer, he has blanked out before. Yes, a couple of times. After some of the more serious benders. One was after the 2 drunks case, the other when we looked into that mural.
So you don't remember not remembering. Beautiful.
You see, Harry drinks as a deliberate means to obliterate memories of his past and the parts of him that he hates the most. But each time he wakes, a sketch remains on the canvas. True Detective's Rust Cohle, however, has deliberately not forgotten his trauma and has instead woven it into his entire worldview. To understand Rust, you have to start with the loss of his daughter. The death of his young child shattered his life and irreparably severed his connection to hope. In the aftermath, his marriage collapsed, leaving him emotionally isolated. This profound grief became a lens through which he views the world, a world he sees as inherently meaningless, where happiness is fleeting and loss is inevitable. His experience reinforces a belief that life itself is cruel, random, and indifferent to human suffering. His years as an undercover narcotics officer exposed him to the absolute worst of humanity, violence, corruption, and addiction in their rawest forms. Rust didn't just observe these things, he immersed himself in them, taking on identities so deep and dangerous that they consumed parts of him. He describes the experience as becoming a ghost, an echo of himself, detached from any sense of reality or identity. His long monologues about time as a flat circle or humanity being a mistake are more than cynical musings. They're the survival mechanisms of a man who has been burned too many times to believe in redemption. For Rust, nihilism isn't just a worldview, it's armor. By convincing himself that life has no meaning, he can avoid the vulnerability of hoping for something better.
I think human consciousness was a tragic misstep in evolution. We became too self-aware. Nature created an aspect of nature separate from itself. We are creatures that should not exist by natural law.
That sounds god-fucking awful, Rush.
We are things that labor under the illusion of having a self, this accretion of sensory experience and feeling. Programmed with total assurance that we are each somebody, when in fact everybody's nobody.
Disco Elysium's messages are communicated in the same way as that of True Detective, delivered in supremely written levels of quality and offering profound statements that feel very real in the context of the characters saying them, never feeling like they're try-hard and making everything that comes after seem so.
The spring thaw must be here. The snow is melting. Looking up at the sky, cold water dripping from your hair. Grey sky like great battleships, clouds colliding with one another. Rain falls down on the world. Your shirt sticks to your chest. The shoulders of your disco blazer grow heavy. The cold finds its way in under your skin. You shiver, and the city shivers with you.
The comparison between the two often revolves around Rust and Harry's shared toolbox of mind skills. Firstly, they both find themselves in cities they don't truly belong to, yet they feel a strange, almost spiritual connection to their surroundings. They let the cities envelop them, observing details that only a native might notice, drawing on an almost metaphysical sense of the place. For fans of Disco Elysium, this will sound familiar. It's Shivers, the game's ethereal sense of urban intuition brought to life. Many of Rust's ruminations align perfectly with this skill, as illustrated by Jamrock Hobo.
Stop saying shit like that. It's unprofessional.
Oh, is that what I'm going for here?
Just want you to stop saying odd shit, like you smell a psychosphere or you're in someone's faded memory of a town. Just stop.
Given how long it's taken for me to reconcile my nature, I can't figure I'd forgo it on your account, Marty.
While Shivers captures the detective's connection to the world around them, I believe Inland Empire is what truly defines both Harry and Rust. Sure, Rust may lack an eccentric talking necktie as a companion, but his eerie intuition, bordering on the supernatural, aligns perfectly with Inland Empire's gift. The skill gives Harry, and seemingly Rust, an uncanny ability to perceive the unspoken, to grasp the unknown, and to instill a sense of foreboding that lingers not only within themselves but also in their audiences. Inland Empire is more than just intuition, it's a portal to a beautifully descriptive, almost dreamlike way of unpacking the world. Whether through brief poetic lines that hint at hidden imagery or sweeping revelations about the nature of existence, this skill creates moments that are as captivating as they are thought-provoking. At its most profound, Inland Empire offers insights into life, death, and everything in between, mirroring the deeply philosophical undercurrents that define both Rust and Harry. It's through this lens that we glimpse not only their internal struggles, but also the philosophies of the creators who brought them to life.
To realize that all your life, not all your love, all your hate, all your memory, all your pain, it was all the same thing. It was all the same dream, a dream that you had inside a locked room. A dream about being a person.
True Detective and Disco Elysium are two of my favourite pieces of media in their respective mediums. I'm here mostly to tell you that they should be viewed as companion pieces, each with their unique hallmarks but a shared DNA. Two men with pain they cannot imagine ever healing, displaying their reactions to the trauma via a pair of murder mysteries. Transcending the usual cut and thrust of bagging evidence and nailing bad guys, they offer insights into the human spirit which are rarely found in TV and games, setting them apart as the gold standard for everything their industries set out to achieve thereafter. If you've never met any of these iconic characters before, or maybe only one or the other, then I encourage you to change that, and perhaps one day you'll crack the case of the crimes that your own mind commits against itself and finally call yourself a true detective.